Good morning, my dear students. So, today we are going to start with a new chapter, A Rare Species of Uncle, written by Zay Whittaker. Now, Zay Whittaker is an Indian writer who writes mainly about wildlife and conservation. She became interested in it because her family members were great lovers of nature. So, before we go to the explanation, let us learn something about Salim Ali. Salim Ali was an Indian ornithologist and naturalist, and he famously referred to as the Birdman of India. He was the first Indian to conduct a systematic survey across India and wrote several bird books that popularized ornithology in India. Now, what is an ornithologist? A person who studies or is an expert in birds. So, let us go through the summary of this chapter. This is a biography of Salim Ali, the ornithologist, written by his grandniece J. Whittaker. In this extract, she focuses on her childhood memories of him as a person living in her grandmother's house in Bombay. Her grandmother was his sister. On their bird watching trips to Borivali Park early in the mornings, he was short tempered and shouted at other drivers. But during bird watching, he showed a rare talent for spotting birds and an amazing stamina for trekking in the sun and climbing up ladders to look into nest. At home, he insisted on the children being quiet at play while he himself tapped away noisily at the typewriter writing his book on Indian birds. Nevertheless, children were fond of him, for he had a sense of humor. His interest in birds kindled a love for birds and their environment in them. His biographer fondly remembers the joy and peace he found in watching a bird, however ordinary it may be. Now, text explanation. This text is taken from a biography of Salim Ali, a well known Indian ornithologist famously referred to as the Birdman of India. Here, J. Whittaker tells us about her childhood experiences with Salim Mamu, who was her grandmother's brother. Salim Bhai was my Mamu, my grandmother Kamu's brother. By the time I was born, he was living with Kamu and her husband Hassan are Nani and Nana in Bandra, Bombay. My parents are both nature lovers, and my father, Jafar Fateh Ali, became interested in birds through Salim Mamu. My mother, Lake, wrote a book with Salim Mamu called Common Indian Birds. Quite often, when new bird watchers are out in the field, one or two of them look into my mother's book to identify a bird. Now, J. Whittaker tells us about her childhood experiences with Salim Mamu and who was her grandmother's brother. So Jay's parents they had a great influence of Salim Ali. Because of Salim Ali, her parents they got interested in birds, and her mother Lake she has also written a book which is quite popular among the bird watcher who often refer to her mother's book to identify birds while bird watching. Now, here, bird watchers, people who watch birds in their natural environment and recognize different varieties of birds. My brother, sister, and I grew up in a very nature friendly atmosphere. At dinner, we often heard words like habitat and ecosystem. Many discussions about nature and the environment took place around our beautiful old dining table in Jew Lane, Andheri. Those days, I greatly envied my school friends because they could sleep as late as they liked on weekends. We, on the other hand, were woken up at 5:30 a.m. to go bird watching at Borivali Park, which is now a national park. Sometimes Salim Mamu would come along too. He would drive his village jeep like a battle tank, honking and shouting at every person and car on the road. Now, nature friendly atmosphere. a situation in which people appreciate nature and mean no harm to it. Next, habitat, the place where a particular type of animal or plant is normally found. Ecosystem, the way in which living things in an area relate to each other and their surroundings. Environment, the natural surroundings or world in which plants, animals, and humans live. Envied, envied means felt jealous of someone. So, Jay's brother and sister, they all grew up in an atmosphere where they learned to appreciate nature. So, every time they heard words like habitat and ecosystem, when there was a discussion about nature and environment around their old dining table in Jolene, Andheri. So those days, she felt jealous of her school friends because they could sleep as late as they liked on weekends, whereas Jay and her brother and sister, they had to wake up early in the morning at 5:30 during the weekends for bird watching at Borivali Park, which is now a national park. And sometimes their Salim Mamu, he could come along and he would drive his village jeep, or he was always in a hurry, and he would honk and shout at every person and car on the road as he wanted to reach his destination as early as possible. His temper, which was never very sweet, was definitely at its worst on the road. As passengers, we learned to shut our eyes and hope for the best. At Borivali, we had favorite walking trails in the forest, following pretty streams and waterfalls. I was not a great bird watcher and still remain so. I keep buying bird books and binoculars, hoping that these will magically make me clever. But Salim Mamu definitely had some secret bird finding talent. So now here temper means the way someone feels at a particular time. We say someone has a good temper, a bad temper, etc. Trails means paths that are followed for a particular purpose. So Salim Mamu, he was a very short temper person, and when he was on road, his temper went worse. And as passengers, they learned to shut their eyes and hope for the best. So when they went at Borivali Park, they had their favorite walking paths, and Jay, she agreed that she was not a great or good bird watcher, but her Salim Mamu, he had some secret talent of finding different kind of birds. He could see what no one else saw, hear what no one else heard. He could walk more miles than others much younger than he. Even when he was old, he would ride a camel or pony, walk for hours in the hot sun, and climb up a shaky ladder to peer into a bird's nest. As children, my sister and I often went to stay with our Nani and Nana. Our bedroom, the guest room, used to be directly above Salim Mamu's apartment. During our stays, we always hoped that Salim Mamu would be away in some jungle or mountain or desert, and he often was. We loved to play hide and seek with our cousins, and Salim Mamu did with our sorry we loved to play hide and seek with our cousins, and Salim Mamu did not like noise when he was working. But what is the fun of hide and seek if you cannot yell and shriek? When he came up the step to shout keep quiet, we would all dive under the beds in fright. However, our nervous giggles would soon give us away. Salim Mamu, he could see what no one else saw, and he heard the bird calls and recognized them. He had a rare talent of finding birds. Even when he was old, he had a great stamina while bird watching. As children, Jay and her sister, they often go to their Nana and Nani's house, and they hoped that Salim Mamu would live in the jungle so that they could play hide and seek. As Salim Mamu, he did not like noise when he was walking. So he called out to them and tell them to keep quiet, and they all used to jump in certain direction, or they would go under the beds in in fright. However, their nervous gives giggles. After some times, they would laugh. Now here, dive. Dive means jump in a certain direction, used here humorously. Give us a way to show or tell someone something that one wants to keep secret. But we, on the other hand, had to put up with the noise of his typewriter at 5 in the morning. Clack, clack, clack. There were no silent computers then, and he typed most of his books himself. When I see his book of Indian birds, I still grumble to myself. It really robbed us of our sleep. Luckily for us noisy children, Salim Mamu loved young people. He certainly used to scold us, but the next minute he would catch our necks with his walking stick and make a funny face. There was always laughter when he was around, and he was the loudest and most croaky. Once my cousin and I decided to bake a cake for him on his birthday. It came out looking like a small rocky hill. However, we carried it proudly to the table, and the 62-year-old birthday boy was asked to cut it. After a short struggle, the cake fell on the floor with a thud. Salim Mamu sprang back and peered at the cake. Strange, he said. It didn't break. Lucky it didn't fall on my foot. Salim Mamu, he was lover of silence and calmness. He gave complete dedication to his work, and for that reason, he could not tolerate any kind of disturbances around. And he would often come to these kids and scold them for being noisy. But on the other hand, the noise of his typewriter would disturb the children at 5 in the morning. At that time, there were no silent computer, and he typed most of his books himself. So when she reads his book of Indian birds, she still grumble. Now here grumble means complain about something or someone, because it really robbed us robbed us of our sleep, means did not allow someone to sleep. So luckily, but he was a very children loving person, and he loved young people. So we can say that he was strict, yet he was humorous. There was always a laughter when he was around, as he had a very good sense of humor. So on his birthday, Jay and her cousin, they baked a cake for Salim Mamu. It was looking like a small rocky hill, but after a short struggle, the cake fell on the floor because it was too hard to cut. So he sprang back and peered at means looked closely or carefully at something, and said that luckily it didn't fall on my foot. Wherever he was, Salim Mamu always had a small army of followers, many of them children interested in wildlife. Because of him, many people in our family also became interested in natural history and conservation. I have many memories of Salim Mamu. I have many memories of Salim Mamu. Binoculars around his neck, surrounded by little bird watchers, mouths open, staring into space. But most of all, I remember the joy on his face when he was looking at a bird. It did not have to be a rare or colorful one, even a bee eater or drongo brought a special light to his wrinkled, sunburnt face. Bird watching was his life. Salim Ali, he inspired others and her family members, the young generations who were interested in bird watching and in birds. She has also many memories of Salim Mamu. He was always carrying binoculars around his neck and surrounded by little bird watchers, mouths open, staring into space. Such kind of memories she has of Salim Mamu. Um, at the end, the author says that any kind of bird, it did not have to be a very colorful or rare species of bird, but any type of bird brought that happiness in Salim Ali. He loved and believed in bird watching. Bird watching for him was his everything, complete life. In short, we can say his life. Thank you, children.